Hey guys, we're getting into fencing today. We're gonna show you exactly how we're fencing our pasture and some things that we're learning along the way. Stick around and see all the stuff that's going on the homestead. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, The Purpose Driven Homestead. Now, today we're working on pasture and we're trying to get our fence up. And that's been a big challenge. I hurt my back a few weeks ago and it's actually put everything kind of on hold. We haven't got that many videos out lately. I'm back on the mend now. I'm in a spot now where hopefully we can get this done. I started out last night. My wife jumped in and helped me at the end of the day after I got off work. We did a little bit on this. I've got this section behind me. Now, how we approach this is, you've seen our videos in the past, and if you haven't, I'll drop a link in the description below. I'll also throw a card above here. But you've probably seen our videos on how we planted our pasture. The next thing we did is we came in and we put in T-posts and regular posts. Now, the regular posts are periodic. They're just a lot more expensive than using T-posts. So we put those in. We also put these posts in back here that you can see that we hung gates. And so wherever we've hung gates at, we put in the larger wooden posts as well, just because they're obviously sturdy. You can't hang a gate with a T-post, it's just not strong enough. And so we put in these gates, and we put in quite a few gates. We may even still put in a couple more. The idea being is that we don't want to be in a spot where we need a gate and can't put one in later. So we still have at least one or two. We have a small gate and a big gate I'm looking at over there right now. We may still put in a couple more gates into this pasture as well. Now you can really see the difference here. Now this is a regular old T-post here that we've got in the ground. Here is what the gate posts look like. These are obviously much more heavy duty. They're bigger. We've got our gates put in. We screwed these in. We actually got these on sale. They were rusting out. We got them on sale. And when I say they were rusting out, they had some of these small rust spots on it. We were able to actually get a really good deal on these. I think we got them for like half off or a third off, but there's some rust spots in them, but they'll be fine for us. We'll come through here and we'll spray paint those and get them in a good spot. Now you can clearly see here that this section is not fenced in. We just started. So what I thought I'd do is I start with a section where the gate was, because otherwise I'd have to cut the fence. And so I went on the other side of this fence here, and now I still have to stretch it from this end. This is tacked up. I've got it on the other side. I'll show you that in a second. Now you can see that this is tacked up, and I did go ahead and put 3 in here because I knew I'd be pulling against it. I'm gonna have to take these out. I knew they were gonna be temporary to start off with, but it is what it is. I'm taking these out, and then I'll stretch from this end as well. I already stretched from down at that end, so you can see way over there, and I'll show you a little drone footage of this here as well, but you can see way over there, that's where we stopped, and this first row kind of rolled out. So it came from here all the way down. We were able to make our turn down at the corner and then come down here. Now we're going to try to get the rest of this field done today. So it's supposed to be really warm today, close to 70 probably, so I'll probably be coming out of this fleece and just in a t-shirt the rest of the day, but we're hoping that our pasture right here is going to really take off. Our ryegrass has done okay. It's been kind of cold off and on, which we knew was going to happen, but I was hoping we'd have a few more warm spurts where we get the ryegrass to be able to catch up. Our clover and our fescue is doing pretty well as well. It's germinated, but it's just kind of sitting there. It's dormant, right? Because we keep getting frost and cold weather that comes through. It'll be warm and then it would get cold again. And so, you know, we're in a spot where at least it's growing some, and a lot of places like where we lived in the Midwest before, it wouldn't even have done that. So we're in a good spot. You also probably noticed, and I'm going to show you some footage here, but you probably noticed that we've only fenced in and only posted. So when I say posted, we've only put posts up, fence posts up on half the field. Now the idea was we would do half first and then come back and fence in the other half of this field as well. As you've seen in some of our previous videos, there was some logging going on the property, and because of the way the logging was situated, this part of the field was far enough away from the woods that we didn't have to worry about any issues of, you know, logging vehicles, skidders, that kind of stuff having to go across the field. And they really did a great job of keeping that to a bare minimum, only where they needed to. They were very respectful of the property and trying to do their best to, at least in the fields here where they knew we had stuff planted, they did a great job of trying to keep out of those fields and only drop trees when they absolutely had to. Having said that, we still have to go back here in this other field. We're gonna have to come back through here. We're gonna have to fence all that in. We're gonna have to put posts down again. I'll show you more about that. And we're gonna use this fence line right here as a primary line. And so when we hook onto this fence, we're not gonna put a new fence on the other side. We're just gonna use this as both sides of the fence. The idea being that we'll have a gate here in the middle, which you see behind me. And then on the other side, where there's no fence today, we're gonna be putting up fencing later on. That'll give us a second field. We'll be able to move any animals from one field to the other through the gate as we do our paddock style. So we'll be able to do paddocks over here. And if we wanted to eventually have one set of animals over here and one set of animals over here, we could do that as well, keeping them separate if they were animals that we didn't want to put together. For instance, like maybe pigs and cattle, or pigs and sheep or something like that. Whereas you might be able to do sheep and cattle together in the same space. But that's kind of the idea. Either way, we'll have a gate here. It'll be flexible enough that we can do multiple things. But if you have one large field that's just fenced in, sometimes that doesn't give you the flexibility that you want. Now, the other thing is we had a tree that got dropped into this field, so we've got to clean up. We actually had to pull all the T-posts up. When these guys were going through, they dropped one of the trees in the field. It was the only direction they could drop in because of the way the electrical lines and things like that work. So they had to drop it into the field. We've cleaned most of it up. I still have a pile of debris that I've got to get up. I might get that today, but I've got to get that up. I've got to get new T-posts put in. We pulled those up. We've got to drive those back down. And if we make it all the way around to that edge, that'll be something I have to get done today because I got to get the debris out of the field before I can put the fence up. So it's like you're always working under the gun trying to get one thing done so that you can get the next thing done. But right now, if I can get this fencing in, we're going to try to work on that today, get at least all the way up to the edge as far as we can go. And if I need to get the debris out, I'll show you that as well. Now, this is really important because we have some animals that are planning to come onto the property here in just a few weeks. We actually have a type of cattle that we're going to bring onto the property. So that's something that we want to make sure that we get this up and running. Before we can get the cattle in here, we have to get this fencing done. And so this is priority one at this point. It's a nice day, so we're going to hit it and try to get it done right now. Now, everybody gives me a hard time about my cart. Everybody's always joking about the fact that I put this cart on the back. I've got a hook down here that I hook the handle into. But I always kind of get a bit of a hard time around me, and you're pulling around this tiny little cart with this UTV. What are you doing here, man? I gotta tell you, this thing right here, this is a lifesaver because I can use this cart. I can just hook it up. This thing pulls it. I'm not gonna be going fast when I'm going through the fields or stuff. A lot of times we've got food, and that's the case here. We've got some chicken feed and that kind of stuff that I don't want to get tools and that kind of stuff into right now. I can rinse it out, but I can just jump in real quick and have everything loaded up on my cart and ready to go. Like I've got all these T-post clamps. I've got all my tools over here. We've got nails or staples for the posts. I've got everything I need in here. I can just pull this out, hook it up, and have everything for today's job already pre-ready and ready to go. And I don't have to throw it in and out and displace stuff in the back of the UTV. So you might think this is kind of funny, but I got this thing at a yard sale for like, I don't know, I think it was $5 at the time, maybe $10. But got it at the yard sale, and this thing has been wonderful. It's worked great. I can use it in the garden. My wife can use it in the garden. Take everything out, pull things around. The kids use it probably as much for as a toy as we do for work. But I really do like this cart. So if you guys have ever thought about getting one as a utility cart, they're awesome. They do a great job. So think about getting one of those. So as you can see here, we've got our fence stretcher. It's actually where I left it last night. As opposed to disconnecting it, I just was going to leave it here so I could see it. It was dark when I finished last night. We've got our fence stretcher ready to go for our next run, but I need to go get another roll of wire now so I can get this fencing tied in. So I'm going to have to use this fencing here. I'm going to probably have to cut it off. It got a little mangled here towards the end. So I have to cut it here in the middle, probably somewhere on this side of the stretcher. So what we'll do is we'll get that next roll. I'll have a patch here I'll tie in, and then we'll pick up from here and we'll run all the way down and go to our next turn. Hopefully it'll make that all the way around to the edge over there to that gate. Don't know if it will, but maybe. We'll see. So I had this great idea that I was going to pull this wire out with the ATV here, and I've got this chain hooked up to it. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. The idea here is that I've got my chain hooked up. I've got a post that's going through here. I've got it hooked up on the other side. It's all going to depend on how steady of a pull I can get here, because I absolutely can see this thing running over the chain, because this thing will maybe start rolling downhill and could run over the chain and then it'll get bound up. It also is going to be critical that I keep this thing exactly lined up with the back of this, because if it starts, either one of these ends starts twisting, that's not going to work either. So we'll see how it works. Yeah, so it did exactly what I was afraid it was gonna do. It rolled back over my chain. I was able to get a little ways, but this thing worked fine when I was pulling it by hand. So I pulled this thing over here just to get it hooked up. It does fine, but I think the difference is I can adjust the length of my arm and pull on one side versus the other to kind of keep it straight. So I'm not sure this is gonna work. I'll probably have to pull this over by hand. That was a lot. So we got our fence here now where we need it. It came from way over there past where you can see the greenhouse plastic. So yeah, that was a long walk. Anyway, we got it now. Let's get it spliced together.
And a few days later.
It's a cold morning this morning, at least for down here. I'm sitting here eating a little bit of breakfast inside the skid steer while it's warming up. I figured out a better way to stretch fence without a tractor. So I had rented this skid steer for another project here on the farm, and I still had it because I was working on trying to get some of the wood up that's still out in the pasture and out in the areas where they've cleared it as part of the logging. And I thought to myself, you know what? The tractor is not something we have right now. And we've been using our UTV for that, and it just, you know, it's a little hard because it's so low to the ground. It doesn't really stretch the right way. It makes more tension on part of the fence than it does on the other, so it's just a lot of work to try to ratchet it down and get it to pull evenly. I thought about it to myself, I'm like, this skid steer will work great. It's got a fork on the front that I can use to attach the chain to, and I can lift it and raise or lower the fence as needed to make sure it's even. And my wife is down there. She is currently putting in a few fence staples into the wooden corners. We've got our H's set up, but she's doing that so that we can let go and I can take the tension off of this. Then what I'll do is I'll attach another roll right here where that fence is kind of terminating there. I'll mend in another fence. I guess that's where the term mending fences came in. But obviously in this case, I'm just going to join a new roll to it so I can keep going. But this is much easier than trying to do it with the ATV and since we don't have a tractor with a bucket on it, I think this is the next best thing.
And a few days later.
Hey guys, it's about a week later. We've actually got the fence finished now, and I think it looks great. There are definitely some things that we've got to change about it. There's a few errors that we've got to fix, but overall, I think it's in really good working condition, and that's great because I actually waited to show you kind of the finished product. It kind of skipped a little bit there in the middle, but I wanted to show you that because today is the day our cattle arrive. So we've got our solar energizer sitting right here. I'll put a link in the description below for that. We really like this one. We've had a couple of different ones, but this is the kind we really like. And I'll also share with you a little bit about how we did our setup. Now, I know there are going to be a few of you guys that look at this and say, that's not how you should have done that. And if so, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you to say, hey, here's how we've done it. We love to learn from other people's experiences because that's how we grow as a community, right? So this is not perfect. We readily accept that. And we also would love to hear some better ways to do it if you've got them. And what we did is we've actually got these H posts here. We've got these set up, and those are in our corners. Then we've got our wire that we got secured, and that's what we were doing the other day. I've got some extra gates laying over there behind us here, but we've actually secured this. And on the inside, we've offset a poly electric wire. We're gonna put this strand first. Our cows are pregnant, and so we're gonna have some calves soon. The idea is that this will be the first thing that we're doing, and then we'll put another strand lower for the calves as well. So to get them used to it and to make sure that there's a hot wire that's at their nose height as well. And so this particular one should be at about nose height for our cows, but this will be number one, and we'll probably put a second strand. We may also put a third strand up here higher than the fence, and that will be for our dogs because we want to make sure that they don't get out. And so we don't want them kind of hopping over the edge, our livestock guardian dogs. So we're going to probably put one up here as well. Got our water trough set up as well. Now, I hope you guys can also see that we got everything set up in paddocks out here. So we've got 6 paddocks in this particular space, and it's gonna be more when we get the back section also fenced off. So right now we've got the T-post put in for that back section. That's going to be just poly wiring. So we're just going to use electric fence to keep the cows contained back there. But for right now, we're going to get them up here, get them used to everything. We're going to have them in a rotational paddock style, and then we're going to move them back there, and we'll also have probably 6 paddocks set up as well back there. And so about 12 paddocks total just for these 2 fields. About a day in each paddock is what we're thinking. Now we may keep them here in this first paddock just a little bit longer, and the reason is because it's just getting warm now. I still got a little jacket on here. It's a little cool today. It's going to be not quite 70 today, but it's going to be in the 60s. So I could probably take this off right now. It's actually getting a little warm, but it's supposed to be back down into the 50s, and so the grass isn't growing super fast yet. It's down to close to freezing at night still, but we're getting there. And so it's picking up speed, and so we've seen this stuff kind of explode from a growth perspective, but it's still small. And so we can probably sacrifice this one paddock right now and have it overgrazed a little bit and allow the other paddocks to get more lush before we move the cattle there. We'll just kind of have to see how that goes. So again, we're getting 2 bred cows. That means we're gonna have 2 calves probably in March sometime. And so, you know, we're looking to try to figure out how big of a space those 4 cows eventually are gonna need. But up front, this should be enough space. I think that we've got this kind of set up in 6 paddocks. I'll show you a view from the air as well, but I do think that this is going to work out well. I see our cattle pulling up right now. Now, both of them were laying down earlier. One of them is up now. She just got a little nervous when I came in here, but she wanted to see what was going on. But both of them are out here. We're gonna give them a few days just to get used to things, get used to us, the surroundings, the dogs, the other animals, just everything in general. And we're gonna be sharing more with you guys in the upcoming weeks and more videos on our cows and what type they are and why we chose these and a whole lot of other stuff like that. But for now, guys, we hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time on the Purpose Driven Homestead.